Okie dokie. All right. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to make a presentation that I know a lot of us, it's just common sense stuff, but don't we all need a little reminders of the common sense things that we need to do to keep the sanity at home? We are facing history right now. We're living something that no one ever told us this was going to happen. We had a life, we had a routine, we had our jobs, the kids were going to school every day, and all of a sudden, everything has changed. And now we're all stuck at home. We're not supposed to go out. Things are just completely different. So as parents, how do we handle this? How do we deal with the kids at home? Like I said, a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about in this presentation, a lot of them are very common sense, but it's always very helpful to get reminders of how we can help each other. Just remember, we're all in this together, and the struggles that I'm facing, a lot of people are facing. The struggles that you're facing, a lot of other people are facing. So it is important to always remember that we belong to a community. And that's one of the most wonderful things that I feel have came out of this disaster, is the ability to understand that we're good people. Like we are helping each other, we are giving each other, like I see people giving like fruits to their neighbors and just leaving them outside. Just the community is out there, just so you know, and it's good. It's a good reminder to know that we're all here for each other and we need to help each other. As parents, we're dealing with a lot of things right now. Having to work from home and having the kids at home, it's very hard. So we need to find a way to keep sanity, right? For some people it's easier than others, but I think it's just good to know that we have things to do. We have things to focus on. I'm going to talk about today's agenda. First of all, I'm just going to welcome everybody. I'm going to give out the Zoom rules. If you've been on the Zooms for Baxter High School, you probably already know. The introduction, who am I, why I do what I'm doing right now. I'm going to talk about the rules to keep your house sane during distance learning. 4 rules and steps, I want to call them steps, that can save you lots and lots of headaches. And then what to do if the students is not helping or cooperating. How can we deal with that, right? And then I'm going to open it for Q&A. First of all, the Zoom rules. To avoid the background noise, everyone is muted. So if you have any questions, please type them on the chat, and then I'll get back to you at the end. I can also open the microphone at the end, unmute everybody. It's just that if I have everybody open, then there's a lot of background noise. Just to avoid that, I'm just gonna keep everybody muted, but just know that if you wanna say something, you can chat, and then I'll get back to you, okay? So who am I? My name is Carla Baccio. I am the Parent Engagement and the Operations Associate at Baxter High School. I am the mom of 2 teenage girls, Aitana and Camila, and I also have my dog, Juno, and my husband, Bardo. I've been a fitness and a lifestyle coach for over 10 years. So before I worked at Baxter, I had been coaching people in lifestyle for many, many years. So I've been helping people creating structures and schedules and systems and rules. So kind of like a little bit of what I'm doing here with you. I've been doing that for like 10 years. So a lot of the experience that I had throughout those years is something that I'm going to share here with you. Okay. Let me see. I think there's someone chatting. Yo se los mando, claro que sí. Okay, is there a way to help a parent that is a senior than one? Yes, I will. I'll talk about that. So we will talk about particular case scenarios, okay? So for sure. And then I'm gonna go back to those questions. So in my years of experience helping people, I have realized that people who succeed in anything, in work, at home, and fitness, and when I talk about success, I don't talk about like rich people or successful, like what, no, I'm talking about people who accomplish what they started, people who start and finish, people who have that like, that they finish, they accomplish something. That is like something, that is success in achieving something. So the people who have achieved that success have always two things in common. They have plans and they have rules, okay? Now it is important to remember that the rules, because whenever we talk about rules with the teenagers, they think the rules are gonna limit their life. But if we can help them understand that the rules don't limit, they can actually set them free and they can help them make their life easier, all right? The rules do something very important. They take the guesswork out of the equation. The rules are clear and most times unbreakable. So it makes it a lot easier. For example, the red light or the red line. So if we're gonna park and there's the red area or the red light, we know that we're not supposed to go past the red light, correct? Because number one, we can crash. Number two, we can get a ticket. So the rules are very clear. And if we break them, there's consequences. So we don't have to think about it. Like we don't have, when we get to crossroad, we don't have to try to guess if there's another car coming. If there's a light, we don't have to think about those things. They actually make our life easier and safer in that case, right? So we just have to remember and remind the students that we already have rules, right, at home, but we need to create new rules. So when we talk to the students about the rules, we can remind them we already have rules. For example, we used to have the rule that the kids go to school every morning. They all have to wake up at a certain time. They have to get ready. They have to have breakfast. They have to either walk or we have to drive them to school. So those are kind of like rules. We also had core rules. So some houses are more strict about that. Some other houses might be some more leniency. But in general, we all have rules of who does what, right? Sometimes the kid might be in charge of doing the kitchen or washing the dishes. So those are certain rules that we already have. Simple rules like the room, like this is my room, this is your room, this is his or her room, right? So we already have certain rules, even if they're not written, but we have some rules. We just, what did I do? We just have to create new rules. I think I closed my screen. I'm sorry, hold on. There you go. Okay. So when making new rules, we have to remind ourselves that we have teenagers and we have to maybe allow them be part of the new creation of rules. But we have to make it clear that you, the parent, will be the authority who will determine which rules will stay and which ones don't. It's very easy to think about, like when we send the kids to school, they know who the authority is. They know that the authority in the school is the principal. They know that the authority in the classroom is the teacher. Even if they fight the authority, most often than not, they know who the authority is. Okay, so we need to make sure they know and they have very clear that we are the authority. Parents set the rules, okay? They can be part of making new rules, that's okay. But at the end, the parent is the one that is going to say yes or no to the rules, okay? So we need to set new rules. The students are not working from home. So we need to make sure that they have a rule of where they're gonna do their schoolwork. It's not okay to do schoolwork in bed, all right? It's not okay. I know they want it. My daughter, like for 3 days, she was like working and I had to fight her. I was working, so I couldn't fight her all the time. But I got to the point that I had to make her get out of that and then do the work in the kitchen. Like she doesn't have a table in her room to do the work. but we have a table in the kitchen, so that's where she works, or that's where I work, right? The other thing is that they cannot do schoolwork in pajamas. They need to dress up. They need to get ready. They need to have a schedule in the morning. They need to have a school check-in time. They need to have bedtimes, and those are rules that they need to follow. And trust me, if we make those rules now, it's gonna be a lot easier towards the end of the school year. We have already been told that this is gonna go until the end of the school year, so we're gonna stay here for another at least a month and a half. So we need to set the rules clear now, sooner rather than later, right? Okay. So that was the step number one, was to create the new rules. And part of the following steps are part of those rules, right? So the step number two would be to create a nighttime schedule. And we always think about the morning schedule because that's so important. We start the day, we have to have a day schedule, but the day schedule starts the night before. Okay, if we wait to set up the pace for the day in the morning, we're already catching up. You have to plan your day the night before. Okay, so it is important to remember that having a nighttime routine sets the tone for the next day. Number one, have a set time rules, which means you got to tell them at what time they have to turn off devices such as the phone, the computer, or their tablet. Talk about the importance of reading before going to bed. Have a set time to turn off the lights. And make sure the student has an alarm for the next day. Okay, so these are very common sense rules, right? And we're all thinking, oh yeah, that sounds great, but it's not working for me. Like I tell my teenager that he has to set up the alarm and he's just not doing it. So we just want to shake their heads, right? We can't do that, but we can do repetition. We have to make sure we talk about these things every day with them. There is a chemical in the brain that is abundant when the kids are little, when they're like between 2 and 5 years old, that it kind of like seals the connection of their neurons in their brain. When they're little, they learn a lot. It turns out that that chemical is abundant when they're teenagers, between 12 and 15 years old. So it's another opportunity that we have to teach them. They're very stubborn at that age, but we need to practice the same repetition that we did when they were 2 years old. We have to repeat that when they're teenagers, okay? We have to tell them to brush their teeth like 1,000 times before they actually do it on their own. As parents, when they're teenagers, you don't have to tell them to brush their teeth, but you have to repeat a lot of things again, okay? So that came as a surprise to me because I thought when they were teenagers, I was kind of like, good to go, but that's not the case. It's kind of like having a 2-year-old all over again. Okay, so use reverse engineering with your teenagers. So you have to use this to help them kind of like understand how the day unfolds. For example, the night before, the scholar needs to plan for the morning ahead, right? So if, for example, the school starts at 8 a.m., they have to check in with their teachers at 8 a.m. It takes them, so this is my daughter, so this is what she told me. It takes me 15 minutes to dress up and have something to eat, but I like to have 10 minutes to snooze. So if you put the time back from 8, take away the 15 minutes to eat and get ready, and take away the 10 minutes to snooze, then she has to set the alarm at 7:35. So if she has the alarm at 7:35, then she's gonna have the 10 minutes to snooze, and then she's gonna have the 15 minutes to get ready and have breakfast, right? But I have to see that she has the alarm on her phone. That's the rule, right? Part of step number 2, you have to create the nighttime schedule. You have to be flexible, but firm about times. We know life is different for everyone, and we know that every student is handling this very differently. Not everybody is reacting to this the same. Some kids are loving it, other kids are hating it. But in general, we just have to roll with dice. We really have to go along with them, and we have to be a little bit flexible. But we also have to be firm, which means we can give them the option to choose, like between what time and what time they want to go to bed. Don't let them choose. Don't give them like a free card. A good tip that someone gave me is just give them the option of two things. Okay, do you want to go to bed at 9:30 or 10 p.m.? So there's no 11 or midnight or nothing like that. So do you want to go to sleep at 9:30 or at 10 p.m.? That's the only two options. Of course, she's going to say 10, but she had the option. It came from her. She made the decision somehow, right? So also talk to your scholar about how important it is to sleep. I think for my girls, because they're girls, it's important. Like they want to know that they are going to look better if they sleep. But whatever works for them, right? Just talk to them in their language a little bit. Have the student choose their clothes the night before. I know they're not little kids and it's really hard to make them do something. They are teenagers after all. But you have to make sure and you have to remind them, you have to choose your clothes for the next day. You're not allowed to do school in your pajamas. So you need to choose your clothing. And sometimes they need to do their own laundry. So they're like, I don't have anything to wear. Then you know what? Then you're going to do some laundry right now or whatever. Even if they don't have a washer, they can wash their clothes at hand. There's really no excuses. As a parent, you have to make them understand how important it is to dress to go to school, right? Yeah, exactly. So some parents are different. Like, I just want to say, some parents are more strict, some parents are a little more lenient. But what I want everybody to understand is that if we have set rules, it makes our life a lot much easier. All right? Having rules makes everybody's life easier. They might hate you that day, but they're going to thank you somehow, someday. Have the student plan the day ahead. Do it with them, all right? Plan the day with them. Make it a fun, bonding experience when you sit down and talk about the plans and goals for the next day. So I have some printables that I'm going to share with you, probably on Parent Square, that if you like them to do manual stuff, it's really fun, especially when they're a little bit younger. With my 13-year-old, what worked really well was when I printed the day schedule and then we did a color coding, like at this time is a school and there's a color for the school. At this time is fun stuff and then she colored yellow. And then, so that was kind of like a more dynamic experience and she really liked it. And she actually said that after she did that, the next day she felt so productive because she already had a plan that she made, right? I kind of like guide her through it, but she created that plan. It was very, very helpful. Okay, so you have to create a day schedule, right? Just like adults do. Kids have to have one. When you have a morning schedule to follow, you are not catching up. You're not reacting. You are in control. And the same happens to them. These are two books I recommend. I actually have recommended these books to a lot of people and they always reach back and they say, this is like the best book. It's not amazing literature. It's actually very simple, little quick reads, but they kind of like, they can help change the mindset. The first one is called The Morning Miracle by Hal Herold. And he talks about the morning routine that can actually set yourself for success. And it's very helpful. And the one thing that I really like about this guy is that he's super young. I mean, I was reading his book and I was like, I felt like I was reading from a 21-year-old kid who totally knew what was life about. So it was, I mean, for a teenage to read a book from a older, personal development writer that is 75-year-old is not fun. But when they read something from a young writer who has found kind of like a new life because they discovered this new morning routine, is very empowering, actually. So I, as an adult, I really enjoy this book and the kids can actually really learn a lot from it. Another really good book is The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. And this book talks about success stories and how these people succeed. And it's kind of like little changes, little tiny changes that people have made in their life that have completely transformed their lives. So maybe that little change is waking up a little early in the morning, or maybe a little change might be going to bed a little early, or maybe the change might be turning off the device, little changes that can truly, amazingly transform a person's life. And if our kids can do that when they're this age, it's so empowering. I like to always remind everybody that every day is a new opportunity to change your life. I have teenagers and girls, so it's sometimes is very emotional to say the least. So things don't go the way they plan it, and it's like the world crumbles. But I always like to tell them, you know what, tomorrow is a new day, and every day is a new opportunity you have to change your life. Every day we have a new opportunity. So keep your schedule as if your life depends on it. So that's for you, parent, so you can share with your student, right? If you keep a schedule for yourself, it's easier for your kids to keep a schedule. Studies show that following a schedule increases productivity exponentially. As a parent, you too must follow a schedule, all right? Part of your schedule could be to make sure your student wakes up and gets dressed up for school. Make sure your scholar has the table ready for school or space to do school. You can use Google Calendar to stay connected with the scholar. So that's another thing that I'm going to talk about, how you can connect the Google Calendars. Make sure your scholar shares the calendar with you so you have access to it. So you can, if you're at work, you can call them, hey, you have geometry right now. How is that going? Kind of like make a connection. Checking on them is good. They like that. They say they hate it, but they actually like it. Make sure on that calendar, if you guys are working together, this is actually scheduling is an activity that I love to do every so often as a family or just with my daughter alone, but we talk about the plans and we like to schedule things that matter. It's not just about school, right? If you don't schedule it, it won't happen, right? Most likely. Schedule time and place to be in school. Schedule time to eat healthy. Schedule time to exercise, and schedule time to do fun activities with the family. You cannot just think about academics, because everybody in your family is going to go crazy. Schedule fun things. Schedule a puzzle one week. Schedule game nights another week. Schedule movie nights another week. Actually, those are choices that you can give a teenager as a reward. For example, like if you follow your schedule today, you can choose the movie night. Or if you follow your school, if you dress up for school, if you do the things that you need to do, you get to choose a puzzle, or you get to choose what's for dinner on Friday, or give them the option. The rewards are not always, it doesn't have to be money. It could be choices, giving them the freedom to choose something that everybody else is going to do, right? It gives them a little bit of power. So I'm sharing the Google Calendar I made with my middle schooler. She has to report to school. They're a little more flexible at Dana Middle School. They're not giving them a lot of like structure like we are at Baxter. But I kind of like help her create something that if she doesn't have to report with the teacher, at least she has to read a book or something, right? So I like to do color coding for my calendars. So I allowed my daughter to choose what color she wants to give to that class. And she created this. She likes to have the same classes. I know at Baxter we have a different schedule, but just make sure you see your kids' schedule so you can see what they're supposed to be doing. Not as a police officer, but kind of like as someone that's going to be coaching them and helping them. They need our help. They really do. And if you notice, there's also the pink. The pink is personal time. She needs personal time to wake up and get ready. She needs a little break to eat some lunch, and so she can go to the refrigerator and she can make a cereal, whatever she wants. I really don't care. And then she can have another break to kind of like go outside and jump in the trampoline, whatever she wants to do to kind of like get out of that zone. So she also has some free time, like with nothing planned. She wants to choose the movie night on Wednesday. So I told her that if she does her chores like for 3 days, she gets to choose what movie we watch. We schedule the movie. And then she has the time blocks to do her personal things so she can be ready for the next day, right? Here's another thing. One thing is to have your calendar and schedule your things. The other thing is to see your calendar the night before. One of the things that is very important to do the night before as a family, or as just kind of like a connection with your kid, is to see the calendar for the next day. So what's going on tomorrow? Even if it's the same things that she does every single day, it's good to connect in that sense where you're like, okay, so what's going on tomorrow? Let's check your calendar. And then you see the calendar for tomorrow. Oh, you have this class before. You know, like kind of like connect, make questions. Schedule, okay, so this is already said. Schedule fun activities with the family. I'm gonna talk a little bit about rules for parents. So it's just kind of like 3 simple rules, but it's good to remind ourselves that our students are going through a lot of stress right now. A lot of your kids are graduating this year. So a lot of this is bringing a lot of uncertainty. So as parents, we need to give them that stability that they need, right? It's very important to listen to them and to ask open questions. So I know this is like, we heard this all the time, but again, these are good reminders. Avoid yes or no questions like, do you have homework? Yes. Did you go to school today? No. Like, yes or no are not, they're not opening conversations. Ask open questions like, what was the topic today in advisory? What was happening with your friend so-and-so? And then follow up. So make sure they know that you're listening to them. It's for them, the most important thing is to know that you are engaging in the conversation with them, right? In times of stress, teenagers need to feel listened to. Let me just move this. There might be some issues that we don't know or we can't help with unless we give them an open space to share. Sometimes we need to just stay quiet, all right? I know as parents, we feel like we have so much experience and we know what to say, but sometimes and many times, silence is gold. When you ask questions, be quiet and let them think. Don't try to help them by giving them options. Allow them to explore their thoughts and feelings and let them feel that it's okay to share with you. It might be silly to say this, but don't look at your phone while talking to your kid, okay? We want to be the example. Listen to your kids. If there is one time that we need to make sure we're listening to them, is when they're teenagers. We need to make sure what's going on in their life. This is an analogy that I write in one of the books that I'm going to share. This is a book for parents of girls, but I love this psychology. The writer of the book, the author, he's a psychologist who works with girls, teenage girls. And she was talking about how the kids, sometimes they come to parents and they share everything. Like they tell us and they cry and they're so emotional. And then next thing you know, they just turn around, they go to their bedroom, they close the door and they don't want to know anything about you. So they shut us off. Part of the development, according to this psychologist, is the fact that they know that they can count on us when they need us and that they can be on their own when they feel they can. So the pool analogy is like, we as parents, we are the edge of the pool. We're there to give them support when they're tired from swimming. The teenager's job is to swim, is to go and swim and play and get tired and be in the water and just explore and be with their friends. But when they get tired and they want to rest, they come to the edge, and that's us, the parents, right? So sometimes they don't want to talk to you. Sometimes they don't want to talk to us. Sometimes they don't want to share anything. That's okay. We have to give them a little bit of space. We have to let them know that we care. Obviously, we want to make sure they know we're there for them. But when they're ready to share with us, listen. Let's listen to our kids. They have a lot of things to share with us. Another thing, don't expect from your son or daughter what you cannot do. In order to help them change, we have to change, okay? We cannot tell our kids to have a schedule if we don't have one, right? We cannot tell our kids to do not binge watch TV if we're binge watching TV every day. We cannot tell them to work on the desk if we're not doing that. If I'm the parent that's working wearing pajamas, I cannot tell my daughter that she has to dress up for school. So we have to lead by example. If there is one day, one time in our lives that we have to be very diligent about setting our boundaries and setting some rules for ourselves, is right now, because everybody's at home right now and they're watching us. Those kids are watching every single thing we do all the time. So we cannot have double standards with them, that's for sure. If you have to have a schedule, follow it. If you tell your scholar that she has to have a schedule, you have to have one too. You want to stay healthy. If you want your scholar to be healthy, to do exercise, then you have to do that too. And that's another thing. You as a parent, you want to schedule a little bit of time for you. You want to have some time to do exercise. You want to have some time to cook healthy. You want to have some time. Those things that you want them to do, you have to do first. Okay. So these are some really good books that I read, but the other rule of thumb for parents is that we need to educate ourselves. We really need to continue to read books about having teenagers. When we have babies, a lot of us had that baby book, right? What to expect. But the reading doesn't end there. We have to continue. Then you have to read the toddler books, and then you have to read the other books and the education book. And now we have to read the teenager books, right? So we have to evolve our knowledge because things are changing all the time. These are two books that I read that I really like, but I'm sure there's a lot more. And if you guys want to share any of the books that any of the books that you think are great, please share them, because I think we can all brainstorm. Untangle, the first one, is mostly for girls, but they're good. They're very helpful. And the other one, it's a very old book, but I think it was so hilarious. It was funny, and it was very, very, very helpful. It's called Leave Me Alone, but First Take Me to the Mall. A Parent's Guide to the New Teenager. It's an old book. I think when he wrote this book, the kids didn't even have phones, like cell phones, but the knowledge and the message is still really, really good. So this is some of, I would say, the best advice that I received as a parent, that I really love to share with you. There is no such a thing as a perfect parent, so just be a real one. The three most important gifts that you can give to your kid are just three things that are free. Your love, that I know you already give your kid, because you guys are all here. You guys are great parents. Your time and your uninterrupted attention. Make sure you as a parent turn off your phone, look at your kid, and listen to what they have to say. I think those are the most important things we can do for them right now. So any questions? So I'm going to go back to the chat because I know there were a few really good questions that somebody asked. Okay. Okay. So one of the parents is asking about what to do when they're not motivated to do their work. When the student is not motivated to do their work, I mean, I can only share what I've seen that works for me and what I've heard. I honestly think that you have two things that are very powerful. One is motivation and kind of like reward system, and the other is consequences. Okay, so I think there's a little bit of both. We have to have consequences and we have to give rewards to our students. I'm just going to give you a very quick example. I think personally that the worst thing that can happen to a teenager right now is when we take their phones away. So when I say, you know, you need to clean your room. The other thing that is very helpful is to give them two options also. So I guess the number 2 is very helpful. Two options. Do you want to clean the bathroom, or do you want to do your homework? Right? So only two options. What are they going to choose? I would say, honestly, nobody likes to clean a bathroom. So they choose the other thing. So give them two options, but it's unbreakable. Instead of saying you have to do your homework or you have to read the book, you can say, do you want to read a book, or do you want to do the laundry or fold the laundry? You know, I don't know, just those two options, and one of them is going to be a little bit. And if they say, I don't want to read a book, I'd rather do laundry, that's fine. At least they're doing something for the house. So, I mean, we cannot be so, we have to give them the option, right? And we have to be okay with it. We have to be okay with the option they choose at the end. And the other thing is consequences. Consequences. In my personal case, the only thing that works is the phone. So if I give them a warning, and if they don't follow through, if they don't do their chores, or if they don't do their homework, then, you know, I don't even ask. I pay for the phone. It's my phone and I can take it away. But that's being the authority. So I've noticed that for some parents, that's a little bit hard to take away a phone because it feels like that belongs to the student. But I'm just going to tell the parents that if you're paying for the phone, you are their authority and you can take it away. And as a parent, you need to do that. You need to take away something that they value if they're not following through. But you can also give them motivation, and you can give them, like I said, it doesn't have to be money. A lot of parents think that we need to give them something that is going to cost us money, like a prize. But I don't believe in those things. But I believe on giving them the options to, you know, like if you do this week, then you're going to choose what movie we rent. Or like I can actually pay Amazon Prime and rent a movie for you. You choose. They can choose what movie everybody's going to watch. Don't let them go to the room to watch a movie and you are in the other room watching another movie. Try to kind of like find a time where everybody's going to watch the same thing. It's a good opportunity to connect. They can buy online a puzzle. You can tell them, you know, if you do your homework, if you are in school every week, I'll buy you a puzzle that we can all build together. So the reward could be something that everybody works on everybody is involved in. So I think those are very powerful motivations. I don't know if anyone has any other idea, but I think it's a good motivation to give them the option. Oh, you get to choose what we have for dinner. You know, like if you do your whatever I asked you to do, you get to choose what we have for dinner. You know, things that motivate the students are very, very powerful. At the end of the day, you can give them small rewards, like a little bit of progress is better than no progress at all. So if you feel like your scholar is not motivated to do school, you can get started by having them just check with your teacher. That's the only thing I need you to do. Just check with the teacher in the morning. They check with the teacher 3 days in a row. Okay, the next time, check with your teacher and do something else. So start adding things, but just give them little things at a time. I do want to say that, especially for seniors, the students that had this plan to graduate, to walk the stage with their friends, to finish the school, this was taken away from them. That experience was like pretty much stolen from them, and it's very sad. So also I think one of the things that we need to have is a little bit of compassion, but do not allow them to fall into that. They need to shake it off. They need to find a new reality and create a new lifestyle, and they have to make the best of it, because nobody can tell us, like, we cannot control the circumstances, right? But we can only control the way we react to them. So that is one thing that they can learn. They can learn to react to the circumstances and thrive through them. Does that make sense? I hope this was helpful. I don't know. I'm hoping that we all kind of like had an idea what we need to do, but we kind of like needed to put it together. It's hard for everybody. By me making this presentation, I'm not going to say that it's perfect every day. I have struggles. Things that work is definitely planning the night before. It makes a huge difference for the next day. So if you can do one thing, if you can take one thing from this presentation, is try to have a night routine where you plan the next day. And if that thing you can do, then I promise you it's gonna change the next day. Okay. If you want the recording, I'm recording this presentation. If you're not part of Baxter High School, you can chat your email and then I'll send you the presentation to your email. I'm going to send the presentation to all the Baxter parents. I'm going to share it on our Facebook group. But if you're not part of Baxter, just chat your email and then I'll make sure I'll share it with you. Okay? Any other questions? Okay, Estela, I'll send it to you for sure. And you can share it with your parents at your school. All right? Thank you so much, everybody else who was part of this. Thank you so much, Baxter parents. I miss you. Tell your scholars that we miss you. We miss them so much every day. And I'll touch base with you. I'm going to try to have more presentations with more people so you can have a little bit of like, you know, some sanity throughout all of this. Thank you so much for being here. Good to see you guys. I don't know if I am. Wait. Okie dokie.